This is the Head Rush Podcast with Paul Fraze and Corey Berry.
Welcome to the Head Rush Podcast. I'm Paul Fraze, and I played 11 years in the NFL, and our co-host, Corey Berry, rode professional rodeo for 9 years. At the Head Rush Podcast, we talk about everything related to brain trauma and brain health and wellness. We talk about traumatic brain injury, TBI, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. We talk about TES, Traumatic Encephalopathy Syndrome. I always do that. We talk about repeated head impacts, RHI, and we especially talk about in today's episode, we talk about repeated blast exposure. We cover which affects obviously our armed forces. We cover how traumatic brain injuries can and will cause mental issues such as depression, addiction, lack of executive function, memory loss, even suicide ideation, as well as degenerative neurological issues. These symptoms can be found on the Mayo Clinic and Boston University websites under symptoms of CTE. Our mantra is how to cope and find hope. We focus our energy on finding therapies and sharing hope through education and by raising awareness.
Our guest today is a repeat guest. We had him on with the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation, and I asked to bring this guest back because in my heart of hearts, I believe he is spearheading another avenue under the CTE umbrella. And I think we really need to work on this today and really talk about it. I'm bringing back the Mac Parkman Foundation, Bruce Parkman. Before we get started, Bruce, I want to read a little bit about, so you all know here at the podcast that the guy we're talking to, and I use the term badass lightly when I talk about Bruce. Mr. Parkman entered the Army in 1980 and spent 21 years in service, including 18 years as a Green Beret, serving in a variety of assignments in the 7th, 10th Special Force Groups and with the U.S. Army Special Warfare Center and School before retiring as a Sergeant Major in 2001. During this time, he traveled to numerous countries in Europe, Latin America, serving in El Salvadorian conflict as a combat advisor from 90 to 91 and leading this first Special Operations Command and Control element into Kosovo to support Operation Joint Guard in 1999. His numerous military awards and decorations include Combat Infantryman Badge, Master Parachutist Badge, Military Free Fall Badge, Scuba Badge, and the Special Forces tab, as well as the Honduran and Ecuadorian Airborne Badges. Mr. Parkman graduated from Methodist College with honors summa cum laude, receiving a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Webster University with an MA in Security Administration. He is also a founding director of the Green Beret Foundation, chairman of the board for the Global Special Operation Forces Foundation, and head of integration for Project Next Ridgeline, an innovative to help veterans reintegrate into society. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm talking about a military man, I'm talking about a man that's, excuse my French, Paul, but it's the fuck around and find out type. This ain't a guy behind the office. This ain't a guy that's been, sitting. He's been in it and doing it. And if you ask me, I'm going to flat out tell you, I believe he is spearheading the TES, Traumatic Encephalopathy Syndrome movement, the RBE, the repeated blast exposure. And I am so certain on this TES, which I am TES endorsed, Traumatic Encephalopathy Syndrome, diagnosed, not endorsed, but diagnosed probable CTE. TES, I believe, came out in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And CTE is the umbrella, but you got to be dead. TES is the living, I believe, for the CTE. And Bruce will talk more about this, but I believe Karen Ziegel is the godfather for CTE. She is the head honcho. You know, you got Chris Nowinski and you got Karen Ziegel. They're the bad to the bone for CTE. I think Bruce is the same, but for traumatic encephalopathy syndrome for the living. Bruce Parkman, I want to welcome you to the Head Rush podcast. Thank you, sir, for all the service you have done for our country, defending our rights to be free. And for what you do at the Mac Parkman Foundation is tremendous. And what you're doing for our veterans for the repeated blast exposure, I want to thank you and welcome to the Head Rush podcast.
Corey, Paul, thank you so much, man. I mean, you guys are doing an amazing job taking your backgrounds and getting the word out there. And that's what's important. You know, what I've done, what I'm doing, you know, it's God's will, man. You know, I believe in, you know, what we're all suffering from. I mean, I've been diagnosed with, you know, brain trauma from, you know, a lot of my repetitive blast exposure and playing semi-pro rugby for so darn long. But, you know, it's, you know, we have to learn how to deal with this, but we have to get the awareness out. And that's where all these podcasts are so important, because they are like the only way to reach, you know, the hundreds of thousands of Americans that are suffering from the conditions that you, Paul, and I have all been diagnosed from or diagnosed with. And they need to know that there is hope, that a diagnosis of a TES, or if you think you're going to have CT, a lot of our NFL players out there just don't want to know. They think it's a death sentence, and that's absolutely wrong. There are so many ways once you've been diagnosed. And number one, you should be going getting the NFL to pay for this, or you should be getting the military to pay for this. But there are so many treatments now that can absolutely help these men and women get back on their feet. But it takes awareness, it takes education, and your podcast is a huge part of that. And I cannot thank you guys enough for having me on.
We obviously have the utmost respect for what you have done for our country, what you have done for each of us, you know, in this race to expose and educate families. One thing that to top it all off, he even goes in front of Washington D.C. and goes to, you know, sets up events to talk to politicians about repeated head impact, blast exposure. So I want to get this right. Repeated blast exposure. That's what our military forces deal with.
Yeah, repetitive head impacts and repetitive blast exposure are the terms that we use you know, to describe the impacts of military training and combat on the brain. And then Paul and you and Corey know the impacts of, you know, all these, you know, contact sports, high risk sports like, you know, pro rodeo have on the brain as well. So it's just that repetitive brain. We call it overarching repetitive brain trauma. And, you know, it comes in a multiplicity of forms. But what we're all dealing with and what our society has not dealt with yet is that the impact of these seemingly innocuous hits that don't cause symptoms. We have for years thought that they were harmless, when in fact the repetitive nature of them over long time frames of all the times you played ball, Paul, and then Corey, all the times you're on the back of that horse and all the other crazy stuff that we've done has impacted our brains, and our society's not trained or educated or equipped to deal with it. And so, you know, we have a lot of suffering and silence going on with our military and athletic populations at this time.
You were just in Washington you were at a Veterans Town Hall meeting regarding repeated blast exposure and veteran suicide. How is that being received, and how do we help get that word out as well?
How'd that convention go?
Well, I mean, I was at the Brain Industry or the Brain Injury Association of America event in DC a month ago. And that was crazy because they barely touched the issue of repetitive brain trauma from both RHI and RBE. So we got a lot of things to do. I was pretty adamant about your podcast and what the findings are in the science and why this is basically the largest preventable cause of mental illness that we have in this country, and that we can make sports safer. And we can diagnose and treat folks like, us that have suffered from the impacts of our careers over the years. And then we had the repetitive blast exposure town hall here in Tampa, the same place that we're going to have our seminar, our summit in September. And that was very, very well received. And it's unfortunate that, the veterans get a lot of the attention, just like the NFL players do when it comes to CTE, right? It's, they're the heroes, they're the gladiators, right? And so our progress with the military is moving way faster than our progress with athletics, especially children, because of it's just not it's getting there. Like, people are understanding these new generations are really against their kids playing contact sports, but unfortunately, it's going to be a longer battle to get the same level of awareness and attention. I mean, right now, and unfortunately, it's because of the veteran suicide rates, which I honestly believe are maybe not as dissimilar, but they're very, very high. If we could start associating suicides with contact sports, but our coroner population is not educated. And that's the one thing that saved my life, is the coroner actually knew about CTE. So we have a long road to show it, but it was kind of eye-opening that the BIAA, a large umbrella organization, did not recognize repetitive head impacts as an issue.
One thing that so right now you have three middle-aged. Would you say that we're all middle-aged? Well, I'm probably
Let's
the
just
oldest
stop
one.
right there.
I'm the oldest one here. I'm going to be 60 in about 8 days, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, but we've got, and we've all experienced, and we probably suffer from something related to CTE, whether we're possible TES or suspected CTE, whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is, when we were doing our sports, and when nothing was talked about CTE and repeated head impacts way back then. The DOD probably had the most information about repeated blast exposure from the 1940s. There's been tests, but you just hit on it, Bruce. What about our? I just literally talked. I was wearing the CTE and the race to end CTE in the airport flying in yesterday. And I was waiting for Corey to pick me up, and I was standing outside, and a guy comes right up to me, probably about in his 50s. He says, my son stopped playing football during COVID, and he just left it. He was at high school. He was getting recruited by D1, schools. And I said, well, that's, you know what? I think that's good. And I said, he said, yeah, he was one of those really aggressive types. And I said, well, when did you put the helmet on him? He said 6 years old. And
have issues.
So we all are realizing that the longer you play concussive sports, the more likely you are to suffer. And we're starting to think that it's really short. It could be a very, very short amount of time of exposure to these head injuries that will cause mental health issues and will cause damage to the brain. So you've been, obviously, your story, your life's mission now, we can't even comprehend what you've been through as a parent, but we just got to get these parents educated. How do we just I don't, short of taking them by the shoulders and shaking them, what do we do?
But that's all that what with Bruce and what he's trying to do. I'm trying to figure out 2019 is when Traumatic Encephalopathy Syndrome kind of came out.
That's when the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Strokes validated the TES protocols. TES protocols actually been around for a little bit longer, and I think it was Montenegro did the first study. It was 2011, 2012, and then Bob Stern, who was the father of TES. He's the one that created that, and I think around 2015, and then the protocols were validated by NINDS, Corey, and then they never did anything with them. And just before I did a conversation with Bob Stern, and they tried to associate TES with CTE all the time, right? TES, CTE, TES, CTE, because TES is basically, as you said, Paul, the in vivo diagnosis, right? Paul, Corey, when they say you have traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, that means, you're probably going to get diagnosed with CTE when you die. That's cool. But, you enjoyed such a successful pro rodeo career. The issue is now we can actually treat the brain. We can make the brain better. We can improve brain health. We can reduce mental illness. So it's not oh my God, I'm going to die with CTE. CTE's never killed anybody.
No.
That is the biggest problem I've got with this thing, is that CTE has never killed anybody. Mental illness is what's killing these men and women. And, to your point, 2019, and we're looking at some grants right now to actually validate them. But, until they said, all right, they basically said, these things are for real, but you can't use them to diagnose because they haven't been validated. Who cares? If we're at least identifying children and men and women that are having issues and say, look, go get a brain scan. Go validate all the years of your contact sports. Go get that diagnosis, because that should open up treatment protocols that can help you be a better person, get back on your feet.
Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Millennium Health Centers, Dr. Mark Gordon at tbihealthnow.org. He signed on with us. You've seen him in our episode 2 with Dr. Mizell DeMeo and Dr. Gordon.
Dr. Gordon's been featured on a movie, Quiet Explosions, a documentary about TBI, featured Andrew Marr, a Green Beret blast explosive specialist. And they talk about TBI, PTSD, traumatic brain injury. And I've watched that movie about 4 times. And I know Dr. Gordon has also been on Joe Rogan 6 times, so he has something good and powerful to say about TBI, traumatic brain injury. So go to tbihelpnow.org.
Correct.
And make sure you get in touch with their team. Dr. Gordon also works with the military. Do you want to?
Yeah, he works with the United States military. He's done the Pentagon. He's working real close with them. If you're a veteran and you need help, go to tbihelpnow.org. Dr. Mark Gordon quit his private practice just to work with the military.
Work with veterans suffering with PTSD.
Right, PTSD, TBIs, and repeated blast impacts.
Exactly.
And if you are a veteran, there's nothing closer to my heart than the people that serve our country and protect our way of right and our way to be able to do this podcast for you. So go to tbihelpnow.org and get the help you need. Mark Gordon, we work with him on the Brainwell program through Mizell DeMeo. If you go to tbihelpnow.org, there's a list. There may be a provider in your area in Canada. He's all over. So go to tbihelpnow.org and check it out. I really bringing you on about is because to get this thing validated, I got my neurologist coming on next month, and when I asked him about TES, he said, well, that's a Jeremy Tanner question. And when I started seeing my counselor, she didn't hear about it. And now she's like, it's on her brain 24/7. And she has students on her laptop going to classes that's never heard about it, that are registered nurses and all of this that's never heard about it. And I sat there and they were doing a Zoom one day and we were talking about it. And I mean, I'm paying my therapist to talk about this. And I said it over the Zoom. I said, you know what the problem is these students that are on your laptop ain't being taught none of this. So what they do is they're going to bring in someone like me. They're going to diagnose me with depression, anxiety, hand me an SSRI, and they're going to flip and kill me.
Bye.
I'm going to commit suicide because they're not asking the questions. Did you ever play contact sports? Did you ever do this? My neurologist was nervous to diagnose me with TES. I had to go to Jeremy Tanner at UT Health San Antonio that works closely with Boston University to get the diagnosis. But again, you know, why ain't these neurologists focusing on this? The counselors focusing on asking these questions and getting it out there, because I'm on Paul like crazy. You need to go get this diagnosis, not for the fact just for the but to help out, because if you go get diagnosed and everything becomes, there's more ground to stand on to bring more awareness to this disease.
We're going to do a little exercise because we have Dr. Robert Cantu's talk about the 4 criteria for TES, and then his nice little pink and yellow, and we've got the charts. And if you're this, and you go to this box, and so Corey Bruce and Corey might actually have me diagnosed this.
No.
Oh,
But remember, it's not a diagnosis, because the protocol, and that's where, to your point, Corey, it's an assessment, right? And the whole point of those TES protocols is to say, look, yeah, you're mentally ill. Okay, you're angry, you're impulsive, whatever your issues are. That's why you're in front of a therapist, right? You have mental health problems. The whole point of the TES protocol is to say, look, we're now looking back at an issue that nobody's ever even looked at. How long did you play rodeo? How many times have you been kicked in the head? How many times your head hit the ground? How many times your head hit the back of the cow's head or whatever? All that crazy stuff that you've done, right? Just the velocity of your head shaking back and forth. They're now saying that stopping a car hard at 10 miles an hour is a rapidly decelerating event that causes it causes trauma to the brain. Now, you don't want to stop the car 1,000 times a day, but they're saying that they're just finding out that our naval boat patrol guys, because they're smacking into those waves like this, that is shaking their brains, right?
Skis.
Jet pilots, jet skis, right? All this stuff. We are not aware of this. So to your point, Corey, the TES, an assessment, and if they say, yeah, you're diagnosed with traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, that's great. What it's saying is that your mental illness could be caused by the impact of your career on your brain. Now, let's go get your brain checked. Let's go. And right now, if you look at it in America, we don't prioritize brain health. That is the biggest problem that we have, the biggest gap. You want to talk about make America healthy again, make America brain safe or brain aware again, right? Because, they check your heart, they check your lungs, check your knee. They don't check your head. And so they just assume that you're mentally ill because of some trauma, somebody touched you. I don't know, you saw bodies in combat. Nobody's saying your brain is hurt. And that's what the TES diagnosis, or we call it an assessment, because I can assess Paul. I can diagnose Paul with the probability of TES right now. Now let's go get it validated. How long did you play football? How many games are in? Right, that right there, and then take a brain scan. That brain scan will absolutely probably show some dysfunctions within the brain, electrical, how water moves. There's different scans that show different things. Those two things together now open up a whole array of treatments that are not available to you, but drugs and therapy, which don't work because they don't heal the brain. So that is absolutely, yeah, we'll diagnose you, Paul. You call me Dr. Bruce. I don't care. But everybody's afraid of this stuff, man, because, the medicine wants biomarkers. They want to be absolutely sure. Well, when it comes to mental illness, we don't have to be absolutely sure. We're absolutely sure there's a mental illness. Now we can be very sure that the brain has been injured. So why don't we just try to treat the brain instead of drugging it and numbing it and then talking to people that have never played football or that never been in a rodeo, that don't have, an understanding of where you are coming from as an athlete, and so, there's and just think of it, guys, right? For how long has football and rodeo been around? How many millions and millions of kids and adults have played these sports, and how many of them have suffered from mental illness that has been misdiagnosed because we are not aware that a hurt brain causes mental illness. And we have treated the mental illness, and how many people have died? How many NFL players have we lost? How many soldiers have we lost? Not all of them, but how many of them are a direct result of the mental illness caused by the sport that was misdiagnosed, mistreated with SSRIs that didn't improve. The players keep playing. They become hopeless. They spiral just like my son. And then the best alternative, unfortunately, is leaving this earth. It is enormous. When you start seeing this, like Corey, you said your therapist can't unsee this. Now it's like on their mile time. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Every time you see a school shooting, there's like, I wonder if that kid, played contact sports. That young man that shot the bank up, I think it was in Cincinnati a year and a half ago, had a massive concussive history before he went and did that act. And it's not an excuse. I mean, we're now working. I'm getting ready to hopefully
have. How many in prison?
How many of them are in prison? We just the BIA just did a survey here in Florida, Paul. They found that 83% of our inmate population have a history of at least 4.3 TBIs, and a lot of them have played contact sports. 44% of our juvie population, same statistics. Okay? And so if we treated our inmates for their brain issues, those acts, and I'm not talking about acts of savagery, and murder and all that. I'm talking about those acts of violence or whatever they were. There could have been, just another cause that we need to take into account. But if we treat the brains, can we get these guys back on the streets, being functional dads, functional, employees, functional citizens,
I want to go into a little bit later. You had a guest on your podcast, Sam. He was an EOD specialist.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about one of the commanders or one of your higher ups wanted a tree removed, and the blast was not calculated correctly, and it blew out half of the windows in the base, right?
Yeah, man. It was raining trees yeah. Well, we didn't want to take all the ammunition. We were in Peru. This was back in the early 80s. And, when you don't blow things up, if you take down a bunch of bombs and stuff, you had to bring it back if you don't use it. So we always try to shoot up everything. Well, on this particular mission, we ended up with a whole bunch of C4 and grenades that, we just didn't want to bring back and take all the time. So we decided to have a class on explosives. And the commander goes, I want that tree out of my compound. It was this big tree. A lot of the trees down there have these buttresses. So they're big rooted. They don't have a lot of roots, but it's these big natural buttresses that keep the trees straight up in the wind. So he had a bunch of his soldiers dig a big tunnel underneath that tree, and we packed it full of everything that we had, man, everything we had left. And then our 18 Charlie, which is our explosives guy, he's all right, and he taught us how to lay the cable, and we ran it all the way down. And Holy cripes. When we cracked that bomb off, man, that tree, we blew out all the windows in the compound. The tree blew up into like 1,000 chunks. And then, of course, we realized that all that to start coming down. And it was raining dirt. Oh, my God. The tree trunks and limbs. And the tree was gone. It was this big crater where it used to be. But, yeah, that one.
Take cover.
Yeah, man. No, we had a lot of fun with bombs, dude. Man, bombs are fun, and that's the issue is that blast goes right through, and you're like, yeah, dude. You don't understand that thing is damaging. It's hurting. Your body, your soft tissue. That wave is not just it's not like a breeze that hits you. It is going through your body, and it is affecting your organs, your internal organs, and we're, now just realizing a lot of this. And so what seemed like a lot of fun back then was actually not a lot of fun as we get older,
So, why do you think, because, even with me, with Tanner saying that I'm TES, we can treat the symptoms, but we can't treat the root cause. Well, one, the root cause is what it is. But it's still medication. In order for me to go to the Gordon Protocol or the Millennium Health Center Protocol, or to go to TMS or Brainwell, a lot of this is now insurance reimbursement, but the protocol's not, and a lot of this ain't insurance. I think if we can get this TES going and more validated, then the insurance companies have to accept it, because someone like me I'm no longer making money. I'm on disability. And I can't afford, I'm spending thousands of dollars on these protocols and stuff out of my own pocket that I think the insurance should be helping out on. But I think it's not, because people like Paul won't go get validated for the issues he has and get these validations out to where the insurance company then has to accept that there is an issue, and that, yes, maybe hyperbaric chamber, maybe TMS, maybe the 19 therapies that's available out there can then be under an insurance clause. Why do you think these medical professionals are not paying attention to this more?
Well, Paul, those are all great questions, and it outlines the biggest problem that we're having right now in this space is that all the modalities, like you said, they'll treat the symptoms, but the symptoms are all treated with SSRIs, SSNIs, benzos, all this bad stuff that eventually, like you said, they're going to kill you, right? The issue right now is that we have to absolutely get, number one, billing codes for this. And our position is like, look, whether it's repetitive blast exposure or RHI, repetitive head impacts like you went through, we have all kinds of billing codes for TBI, all right? We have all kinds of billing codes for concussions, all right? What we're talking about is, a concussion, a massive concussion or a massive TBI, like a car crash, is going to cause damage to the brain, just like your career causes damage to the brain. And the issue about a brain is because it's so unique. It belongs to, and anybody can get hit from the same force, the same angle, and they're going to suffer different damages to the brain. That is why all the modalities need to be present that have shown to improve brain health. You mentioned the Millennium Health Brain Supplementation Program, stellate ganglion blocks, which is an outpatient procedure for fight or flight mechanisms to shut that down. All the electronic modalities from TMS to HBOT to vagus nerve stimulation, photobiomodulation, all of these are available, and even the psychedelics are doing amazing things for brain health. And all of these, to your point, are being paid for by foundations or people that are spending their own cash to treat their brain when their brain was damaged as a result of service to their country or as a result of their dedication to their sport. And that's where you're absolutely right. Insurance, the big thing is about, the VA just created a billing code for blast exposure to the brain. So get this, for the last 20 years, there's been a blast exposure billing code for every part of your body, your colon, your gut, your lungs, your heart, but not the brain. And now they just literally last year created that. Do we need a separate billing code for TES or for RHI-induced brain damage? No, because it's all part of the concussions. It should be, they can add just a line, repetitive head trauma underneath that, bam, billing codes, then it's getting approval for the coverage. And what we're pushing is that by going through 10 or 20 HBOT sessions, photobiomodulation, whatever the modality mix, psychedelics that gets your brain in state, that is 100 times less expensive than a lifetime of medication and hopelessness and continuing to be crazy because your brain hasn't been fixed. You bring up great points. They all need to, and this is part of the battle right now, is to get this, number one, understood as a phenomenon that affects millions of Americans.
So
number two,
go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
No, go.
Yeah, no. But this is our issue. This is our issue, like not just mine, yours. This is our issue right now. Is that we now understand that all three of us have been affected through mental illness by our dedication, right, to sports, military. Okay. Why should we have to pay to fix our brains, right? I don't think that, to your point, Paul, that is not fair. Okay, we were not told about the risks. We went and performed these activities with all of our hearts. And I'm looking at the thousands of veterans that I know about or talk to over time that are just suffering right now that have no clue why. And just by having some closure, to understand, Paul, that your brain, could have been impacted, then you get that brain scan. You're like, okay, now I got something to work on, but we know what can fix it. Now it's money, which is crap, man. Insurance should be covering all these things.
Welcome to the Head Rush Podcast, brought to you by the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation. Karen Siegel, thank you so much. Paul?
So go to stopcte.org, learn about their foundation, and they are sponsoring us for the next year. We are thrilled to have them team up with them and bring awareness to this disease.
So please go to their Facebook page, go to their website, check them out. Karen is very, very, very willing to work with you. Contact her, and if you do know her, thank her for us, or just go on their Facebook page and say thank you for sponsoring the Head Rush Podcast.
Oh, next question. You had mentioned they just got a reimbursable code for the brain injuries or the blast exposure. But what do they cover? Pharma? Do they cover SSRIs, or do they cover HBOT or photobiomodulation, or what do they cover?
No, sir. No, I went to my VA guy, and I was just sitting there because I go there for Viagra or whatever kind of cool stuff. They give me hearing aids, right? What do you got, right? And I was sitting there. I said, hey, man, so let me tell you about repetitive blast exposure. So we talk about it. He goes, oh, no, it's understandable, man. It makes perfect sense. He says, we are starting to, get aware of it a little bit. I go, okay, so if I come to you, and I've already been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder as a result of all the trauma that my brain took and my old, issues back in the day. I go, if I came to you and I said, hey, man, I've had a history of repetitive blast exposure. What do you got for me? He goes, I got drugs, I got therapy, and I might be able to get you Tai Chi. That's it. That's all that's available. So to your point, they don't cover nothing or anything. And so we need to fix that because we have to, and the point is simple. Until we fix the brain, we're not fixing the mental illness. So why not fix the brain? We're saving the taxpayers money. We're getting people back in the cars. There's even new therapies right now, EMDR. There's another form of EMDR that is literally transforming how people are dealing with their mental illness. But until we fix the brain, it's not helping them out, especially when they're unaware and they keep doing MMA or boxing or whatever hurt their brain, or just something else they decide to pick up as they like getting smacked in the head. So there's a lot to be done here. because those, modalities, and the problem with the modalities is everybody wants this FDA approval for these things. And we're like, look, we deal with modalities from everything you guys have mentioned, photobiomodulation, HFOT, the psychedelics, everything, the Dr. Gordon's protocols. We have an 80 to 90% rate of patients going, this has helped me. This has improved my life, improved my perspective. I like this. I need more. The success rate for prescription drugs is 25% or less. And they got to keep trying them. My daughter's a nurse practitioner of psychiatric medicine. At best, they hope that when they give you a pill, that 25% of the time it'll be the right pick for your problem. Yet, so our point is, if you've got 80 to 90% of the people coming out of these modalities going, I need more of this, and I need to, this has helped me, then why are they not covered? And especially since they can greatly shorten the amount of treatment time necessary to get these illnesses healed, because these drugs do not heal them. And it's unfortunate. More people have with these issues. I can't even. It's incalculable the amount of people that are no longer here that you just were misdiagnosed because this is not taught. And that's the other part to you, Corey. This is not taught in any nursing. I mean, your therapist is teaching people about this now. This is not taught. You would think that they teach concussions in athletic training school, in doctor school, and nursing school. They do not teach repetitive brain trauma at all as a significant issue nor a cause of mental illness.
And that's why I think, and I disagree with you a little bit, Bruce, is I think TES should be billable, other than concussion. There's so many concussion protocols, so many concussion studies, so many concussion. Man, the world is flooded. You get on my Facebook, man, on the Head Rush podcast, do you know how many advertisement for concussions and, all of this? It's stupid. I think if you can get a TES billable, I mean, if you look at Social Security disability, which I'm on, CTE is automatic. Well, you got to be dead. So you're not going to get disability, you're dead.
A little late.
TES is on there.
So,
I mean, if they're looking at this, if we can get a TES billable, which would give you the RHI, give you the RBE, give you all of the repeated head, and make that billable, then you can work off of that, and maybe the insurance companies will start looking at all this other stuff. And Robert Kennedy, instead of, and I love what he's doing with the dyes and the petroleum-based dyes and everything, but maybe he can look at getting other things going, because obviously I believe the protocol I'm on with Millennium Health Centers helps me, that I'm on with the Brainwell program with Dr. DeMeo helps me. The therapist that I talk to every week helps me. But I had a rough last couple weeks where I was down and out and I was miserable, and I went through like 14 days of a pure headache.
he was pretty salty.
And I couldn't get rid of it. And I was saltier than hell. I mean, there was times I would love to have someone to punch in the face and just knock out. I wanted to fight. It was just, and it's funny because I can be taking a shower and I can just feel my chest boost. It's like, oh yeah, I want to fight. Back in our teens when we felt that way, hey, let's go box somebody. But these headaches and everything, and I'm on Emgality shots, I'm on Ubrelvy, I'm on all of this, and they just put me back on Adderall to help me focus because I was so sluggish and so out of it, and I couldn't remember my dog's name that I've had for 8 years.
You get frustrated too.
Right. And so and I think that's the worst of this disease. You just nailed it, is we get frustrated as ourselves. And I think that's the biggest problem is people like me, you, Paul, all the athletes, all the combats, we're warriors. We're competitive. Man, we're out to get it. We control our destiny. We do it all. We work hard. We play hard. We practice hard. We do everything hard. We're not flamboyant and, lazy. We were people that went after what we wanted. And I think with the RHIs and everything that has happened is that when I can't remember my dog's name, I'm pissed. If I trip over a rug, I'm pissed because a 5-year-old can do this. And I'm going, a 5-year-old can do this. Why can't I? And my therapist looked at me and says, well, don't compare yourself to a 5-year-old. I said, well, if I compare myself to a 56-year-old, which I turned June 12th, if I compare myself to another 56-year-old, I am really flipping pissed because I'm not enjoying life like other 55, 56-year-old people. I'm suffering. But all they're doing is that I looked in my medicine case. I bet you I take between supplements and medication 20 pills a day.
There's no need for that, man. And that's where I think talking to any of the brain clinics out there, but then of course to that point, Corey, it takes money. I paid for my ketamine treatments. I paid for ayahuasca. I paid for a lot of these psychedelics in the hope that, and they did. The ketamine was amazing. The stellate ganglion blocks. I finally got to relax because I was so, I was chasing people down in parking lots. I mean, it's just crazy stuff, but I had to go fund all that because there's nothing out there. There's foundations, but I'm not a 9/11 guy. I retired before that, so that money's for them. They did the real fighting, right? They went out there and they conquered, man, and they suffered for it, and they need that cash. But that's where I think looking at some of these other modalities and then how do we they get the funding for it. Because if they got you on Adderall, this is just you're in the normal course of treating the symptomology, man. We got to get the brain healthy. That's where Mark Gordon comes in. You're already on the path, man. But it is frustrating. I actually start stuttering when I get when I lose something, I can't remember something, and I go then I get mad because I'm stuttering. Then it just you get clueless, right? But and Corey, you have just outlined the problem, and it's even even more unfortunate in your case is because we know you have a brain injury, and in our medical system should be sending you to these brain wellness centers and getting these treatments, and they shouldn't be giving you drugs, man. I mean, that's But I mean, there is a place for drugs. Don't get me wrong. There's a right place for Adderall and these SRI stuff, but it's not a lifetime of these pills, and that's what unfortunately pharma wants. And we gotta work on that, man. I'm sorry to hear.
I've been on sleeping pills for, I bet you, all of 17 years, every night of my life, just so I can sleep, because if I don't take them, my brain don't shut down. So in 2019, they put me on Adderall, and I was on it for a couple of years and did good, but then Tanner wanted me off, so I got off of it. Then they wanted to try to take me off of my sleeping pills, and that didn't work. I was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night, and then all of a sudden everything started coming back. And so now I'm back on what they want me, but I can't afford to go do the ibogaine. I can't afford to go do the nerve block. I can't afford to go do none of this. My wife is a ranch manager, and I am on disability.
This is the problem.
Right.
This is what we have to solve.
I think with that TES billable, if we can get that for RHI and make that billable, and that'll be the RHI marker that you're spearheading, you're the godfather of RHI. I believe you are everything when it comes to this, and I am in such respect for you, and that's why I wanted you back on, because I believe if we can do this and then make RHI, and I even talked to Karen quite a bit about this, is I'm believing the CTE is the umbrella. CTE
is a
is
condition.
the umbrella, but TES is going to be, I believe, since it's already in the medical terminology, it's already been since 2019, that can become the RHI of CTE.
You're right. I mean, the CTE. I don't even put TES and CTE in the same. Me personally, and Chris and I have talked about. Even Bob Sturm told me before he leaves, I don't think TES belongs under CTE. But people know CTE, right? They've done a great job, marketing the condition or making it part of the press, part of the conversation. Almost everybody knows, like CTE. I go, no. RHI and TES is not like CTE. To RHI and TES, CTE is not treatable because you're dead. Okay. RHI and TES are treatable, but we have to diagnose it. We have to understand it, and we have to provide the treatments for it. We have to get them covered. Or it's just crazy that we understand what your problem is right now, Corey. We know you have a brain injury, and our medical system's response to that is drugs, right? And not what you really need. And that's where we need to, let's go do a GoFundMe. Let's go start fundraising, man, and get you covered, dude, because this is what's happening with our veteran population. They got to do the same thing. People are mortgaging their houses to buy HBOT chambers so that they can feel better and keep their marriages together.
So,
and there's, go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
So, okay, let's say TES is an avenue to get some, because there's more. You can diagnose a lot of people with TES. You really can, probably more than we know. But would you think that, or maybe? But
I think you got to be careful with it on some sorts. I had PET scans, I had MRIs, I've had 4 or 5 different neurological exams. I've had everything that when I went to Tanner, he had 10 years to show progression, to show PET scans for no amyloid, to show that there's no other disorder associated with this, that if I didn't have these repeated hits and I got atrophy of the frontal lobe cortex, I got white spots on the gray matter or white matter, or I can't remember. I got spots on my brain that are getting bigger, and it's showing in the years of progression. My neurological exams are getting worse. I can't multitask. You saw me trying to do fish tacos. So I think we got to be careful. It's like doctors are out there diagnosing with CTE.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to get at, and it's going to take me a little bit longer because my executive function sucks. Anyway, this episode of the Head Rush Podcast is brought to you by our personal doctor and team of doctors, Dr. Mizell DeMayo, and she's with the Paradise Behavioral Health, and we are in the
Brainwell program, which is also part of the Millennium Health Center. Dr. Mark Gordon, you've seen him on Joe Rogan and even on our show, the Head Rush Podcast. And hormones. And Mizell is awesome. We love her.
She's our doctor of psychiatry. She works the Mark Gordon program with the hormones, and she adds her twist of genetics, and it basically is melding 2 wonderful mediums together, and we're getting great help from Dr. Mizell DeMayo.
So please check out her website at paradisebehavioral.com. Look up the Brainwell program. Get involved.
She's sponsoring us. They're sponsoring us for the next year, so we are excited to have them on board and shout the good news to everybody that is watching these broadcasts. So,
is she helping you, Paul?
Absolutely.
She's helping me. So go check her out. ParadiseBehavioralHealth.com.
whatever it is, TES, RPI, RBE, RHIRBE.
Yeah, RBE, yes, sir.
So whatever it is, it's almost like, okay, the only way that people are going to do a double-blind study on the HBOT, photobiomodulation, so on and so forth. And HBOT probably has already had double-blind studies,
Nope, the first one's going on right now in Florida. Dr. Joe Deturi's running it.
So it would, I had a child with, more of a population will bring money to studies. There's not one of these studies right here that need a phase 1. They don't need a efficacy. A safety. There's not one. So you could save millions and millions and millions of dollars. We got through phase 1 with $150 million for a disease that only affected 5,000 to 8,000 kids in the world, and then pharma found out a way to. They're trying to make a way to. Make $300 or $400 million on a population of 8,000. There's a lot more than 8,000 people that could, whatever it is. So, when I say whatever it is, RHI, RBE, whatever it is, TES. So if we could group everything under
the TES,
whatever it is. So
because I think that would be the umbrella for repeated head impacts would be the TES, for the RBEs, for the RHIs, for all of that. Turn that into the TES. Don't worry about the CTE until you're dead. Because I hate to say it, and, I think the world of Chris Nowinski and Ann McKee and Mike Alasko and
Bob
Jeremy Tanner and everything on CTE. I think that still needs to keep going because, but TES has 4 suggestive of CTE, possible CTE, probable CTE, and yes, definite CTE postmortem is TES. So it's already linked to CTE.
It can be, but I want to address Paul's point real quick because, on that, Paul, you bring up a good point. And that's the problem, is that all the modalities that can treat the brain, they're not going to kill you. Yeah. So these FDA trials are to make sure that things are safe. You can't die in an HBOT chamber. Sorry. You can sit there forever and breathe. You're just going to starve to death, right? You're not going to die from photobiomodulation or TMS. They've been around for decades, and I don't think they've ever killed anybody. The psychedelics. You're not going to die from ketamine because you're just going to go to sleep as an anesthesiolog. The psychedelics will hit you differently. Ayahuasca and ibogaine, if you do lie and you say, I've never taken an SSRI, and you show up on the influence, you could have some very serious health problems, right? But that's mitigation. That's risk mitigation. All right. Then you got Dr. Gordon's supplementation program and other ones out there. Those are nutraceuticals, right? You can't die overdose on vitamin D or whatever, progesterone or whatever you're taking. Okay. And this is why, to your point, Paul, pharma hates this because they can't make money. You can treat the brain with these cheap and effective modalities, look at Dr. Gordon. Look at Corey, what Dr. Gordon's got you on. You can go to Walmart and buy half that stuff, right? Pharma wants nothing with this because it's not a pill and it's not a lifetime and they can't make money. So they're not going to, they just don't want to hear about it. It's not they don't want to invest in it, right? They don't want to hear about it because it takes them out of the business. It's a cheaper, easier way to treat the principal cause of mental illness, which is the brain. All these modalities, Corey, we probably, I don't know what they charge for a year of Adderall or whatever, but I'll guarantee you that you could get through most of the modalities for your brain and be in a much better state. And it's a much better investment of taxpayer dollars because when your mental health is better, you're a better person, you're a better dad, you're a better husband, you're a better citizen, right? And all these go back into our society. If we put you on drugs, you're still a messed up cat. You still got a brain problem. Your mental illness is not going to get better. It's merely managed. It's merely numb. You're not going to be better.
Right.
And that's to your point, Paul. That's what I wanted to bring up before, Corey, we started diving into these, the TES part of it, because you're right. Anybody can diagnose anybody with probable TES. The issue is, how do we validate it so that the right people are getting the right coverage and right treatments? Because there is some discussion about, well, anybody could say they have TES,
Right.
but you have to validate it. And that's what the protocols that Bob Sturm has developed. That's what their point is. Right, sir. Sorry.
The 4 primary criteria for diagnosis of TES: substantial exposure to repeated head impacts, 2 core clinical features, 1 cognitive impairment, neurobehavioral dysregulation, or both, and 2 a progressive course. 3 not fully accounted for by other disorders, and 4 level of functional dependence or dementia. To receive a diagnosis of TES, an individual must meet all first 3 primary criteria. If met, the individual's level of functional dependence, dementia, is then graded. So, that's the 4 main criteria. So, core clinical features. You got exposure to repeated head impact.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. So the first question is, all right. Do you have some? All right. To your point, substantial exposure to some head. I think, Paul, you might slightly qualify for that.
20 years of organized football, and going back to the guy that put a helmet on his son at 6 years old, and he quit at 17 years old. He had 11 years of repeated head impacts, and
with a developing brain, and that's where why we're pretty upset about that.
Go to your book about the developing brain.
Yeah.
Right. You parents, you want to read about repeated head impacts during a development part of the most important development in the world is a human is your child's brain. It should be.
Yeah. And if you want this book, go to he's got an app and a website. His app is HeadSmart, which is right here. You can get all the information off of that and more.
And the book's there too.
The book's actually there too. And the Matt Parkman Foundation website. So, you look at this, it's just outstanding it just shocks me, and I am getting frustrated and pissed because I think this is the next big thing, and I think you are in the right direction, and I think you're spearheading everything beautifully to try to make this happen. And then, so, do you have cognitive impairment or neurobehavioral dysregulation?
A lot of people would say probably yes. Yeah.
One or both?
Ding. All right, step number 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem with him right now. Not fully accounted for by other disorders.
Because I have not had a scan. What is it? The amyloid scan?
Well,
you haven't had the neuropsychological evaluations. You haven't had the scans. You haven't had. Not 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years ago, when we were getting a baseline for the concussion settlement. Yeah.
And level of functional dependence or dementia. I am unspecified dementia in my medical record. Unspecified because it cannot. I got Parkinsonisms with the shaking in the right hand. My doctor said pre-Parkinson's, but it's Parkinsonisms. So, them are 2 things right there that you need to see a neurologist to be verified. So let's say you go and you see. So then you go to the next level, which is substantial exposure to repeated head impacts required. Repeated blast exposure
Andrew,
required.
You might have the diagonal set of boxes that goes down. You might have it.
So substantial repeated head impacts or RBEs required.
Right.
I think you got that. Clinical features, cognitive impairment, neurobehavior. Okay, not fully accounted for, not yet. If one or two meets the criteria.
The other issue there too is the mental illness progressive? Like, does it get worse over the years? And,
Right.
So that's another key issue that, that's your first three questions, man. Have you have exposure? Do you have mental illness? Do you have, cognitive behavior, psychological disorder? Is it progressive? Then you move to the fourth part, right there, which is number 3 on that slide. It's actually 2 parts of number 2.
Right. And then if yes, determine the level of functional dementia, dependence dementia, independence, submild functional, limitation mild, moderate dementia, severe dementia. I'm probably moderate or mild to moderate. So meets criteria. Yes. Meets neuropathological criteria? No, because I'm not dead. So CTE's out.
CT's out, and that's the whole point. Is like you look at Paul like we'd look at anybody and say, all right, have you had exposure? Yes. Do you have some form of cognitive behavioral disorder? Yes. Is it progressive? Yes. Then can it be attributed to anything else? And what they're looking at is, do you have like a genetic predisposition? Is your family full of schizophrenics? Have you been like smoking a lot of dope? Or are there anything else that could have caused that mental illness? And if not, then that TES diagnosis or assessment is absolutely valid. And what's that say? That says, it doesn't say you got TES. What it says is that the probability of a brain damage induced mental illness is very high. Now we need to validate that to get the TES diagnosis. That's where you move to documenting all of Paul's background. How long did you play contact sports? Not just football. Did you box? You put all that together. That's part of our job as patients, right? To put that all together. And that's what I had to do to the VA. I had to go with my DD-214. I had to talk to him about all the explosions and bullets I've shot up, the time I spent in combat, getting shot in the face, and all this other stuff that I had to work through, and then my military, I was semi-pro all-Army player. We, did all this stuff, right? You have to validate. You have to bring that in. You have to show them that you actually did. Pictures work, right? TV commercial, whatever you want, Paul, man, back in the day, right? Now, we got to go take that brain scan. And there's 4 different ones that we can recommend. You got a diffusal tensor imaging or a DTI scan. You got a quantitative encephalopathy. There's a QEEG, put it that way, man. Electroencephalopathy, something like that, QEG. Then you got a functional MRI, not a traditional MRI, because unless it's massive bleeding, whatever, they don't catch it all the time. Functional MRI is another way. Then you got Dr. Amen SPECT scans. You go to the Amen clinic so you can get that. But all 4 of those show abnormalities in the brain. And so now you have a validated proof of you playing rodeo, Corey, for all those years and all the other crazy stuff you might have had to go to the hospital, get kicked in the head or whatever, concussions, whole 9 yards. Paul, you have that history. Now with those scans, and Corey, you've done an amazing job bringing all this to the doctor. All right. And so, Paul, absolutely. You probably have, I have it, Corey has it. You have traumatic encephalopathy syndrome. The point is now, what the hell do we do with that? And we don't want, Corey's situation where, people are out of pocket struggling to treat their own brain because what we have for them in our medical FDA approved society is just not working. We have to do a better job with this. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind, Paul. You have TES, all right? You've got traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, just like I had it. I got it. Corey's got it. Millions of Americans have this, and millions of Americans are suffering in silence because, unlike you guys and me, we know we got a problem and we know why we have a problem. Now, how do we fix the problem? Mm-hmm. And that is a money issue. Unfortunately, it's a money issue, and that's where it goes to billing codes and insurance coverage, so that all these modalities can get things going. And it just has to happen, man. I mean, we're all part of this movement. We have never seen a movement like this before. The momentum behind this RHI stuff is now, nobody's even talking. If you look at all the research right now, the CTE is done. Nobody is even focused on CTE. What's going on right now is repetitive ad impacts. All the research out there is RHI. And now we've got to get the community to admit that this leads to mental illness, is a cause of mental illness, so we can get all the mental illness and suicide monies that are out there applied to this. Because once we understand, but as society understands that this is harming people, this is causing them pain, and up to the point of suicidal and even homicidal ideation, then we can start taking advantage of all these buckets of money for mental illness. And instead of saying, we're going to buy you drugs, we're going to buy you treatment. We're going to pay for treatments. And that's what Corey should be going. That's what he should be going through right now. And it's a goddamn shame. And I hate to use the Lord's name like that, but it is. It pisses me off that I hear this story over and over again from veterans, from athletes, from, right now I'm dealing with 3 parents whose children are suffering out of the blue, just from God put me in their life. And I'm helping them understand, not saying that their child absolutely is harmed by contact sports, but the probability is there. And until we eliminate that probability, they should not be playing these darn sports, and that you should get their brain scanned, and you should get them on these supplemental programs and do everything you can and keep them off these things.
Bruce,
this is a huge issue here, man. It's horrible.
We always end the show with hope and awareness. So awareness and education brings hope. I truly believe that. We
absolutely
we honestly believe that. It's almost like you already answered the question a couple of times. We've had that. You just answered our question of hope. What the steps that you just mentioned, 4, 5, and 6 are all about awareness, education, and telling them there is hope and there are things that we can do. And I know we only have a couple minutes left. Really, really quick, your fundraising efforts. What do you have going on now? And were you?
Well, we have Big Mac for Mac Day coming up in September. So that was the day our son left. So he loved those Big Macs, man. So we have a local McDonald's franchise, and everybody sends in pictures of eating those Big Macs, and I eat a lot of them. I never touch them except for that one day. We have the Army-Navy game. We're putting together a concert with a band called Fuel, a big 90s band. Very, very fond of this issue. They have a band member that actually suffers from RHI-induced mental illness, and we're helping him through this right now. So we're hoping to put that together. Then we're going to be out there, talking to anybody that feels like this is an issue. We're writing a lot of grants right now. But anybody or any foundation where mental illness and suicidality is an issue, we'd like to talk to them with what we're doing, the legislation that we have up in Congress, which doesn't move as fast as you really want it to. But all the other things that we're doing with research, the book, the app out there, working with awesome organizations like this, man. These podcasts are so critical to getting the word out, not just for our foundation, man, but for you. You guys are, living proof that we have a problem. I mean, Corey's dilemma right now is heartbreaking, man, and it should not be this way. And he dedicated himself to a sport. Our medical system exists to treat people that have been harmed by whatever. I mean, they're here to treat people. It doesn't mean withholding help, withholding treatments because we've never been trained on this before. That's the excuse. And now that Corey has a diagnosis, everything that should help him, that will help him, that can help him, should be made available. And this is the problem of our day. And I cannot thank you guys enough for having me on the show and talking about this. It is a huge passion. It is my God mission. And I cannot do it without folks like you. And we cannot do it as a foundation without our supporters and people that will listen, and the thousands of parents that we've talked to that will not let their kids play contact sports while they're young. And then the coaches that we're talking to that we can say, look, we can make sports safer. Football can be an amazingly safe sport. Just take the contact out of practice while the games, and don't make it about winning. Make it about everything else in sports, health and fitness. And hey, if you win, you win. Take the contact out of practice, and then, and just like the NFL does. And then if they do that, the same thing in college, by the time they get to the NFL, their brain's hardly been touched except for game day. Teach them skills. You don't teach them how to hit. Hitting does not take a PhD, man. To tackle somebody, another human being, I've done it thousands of times as a rugby player, does not take a PhD, all right? And you don't have to hit all the time. And that is the problem with our military. We've trained ourselves into mental illness. We have soldiers right now with mental health problems that have never been in combat because we train too realistically too often, okay? And we don't have to hit in practice every day to be tough, okay? To be tough on game day. But anyways, I just appreciate the time you guys have let me come on and talk about this. Your dedication to this issue is unbelievable. And because you both are not only aware of it, you're flipping living it, man. And you're doing something about it, which most people with this condition will not do. It hurts too much. And for you, Corey, to get out of bed after those 2 weeks of headaches and keep this podcast going. And for Paul, for all you've been through, the loss of your child and dealing with the issues that this brings upon our daily lives, my hat is off to both of you. And I hope that the Lord continues to bless both of you in the mission you're on, because we definitely need it.
God bless you, Bruce, for everything you're doing and bringing awareness to all this. Like I said, I think you're the godfather that's spearheading this RHI, RBE, and all of this. And by you being the man you are and the military background you have, I feel sorry for all these son of bucks that are going to be in front of you blocking you. Because I tell you what, I was joking around with Paul today, and I said, if I had to be in a dark alley and meet Bruce, an 18-year Special Force Green Beret, or Paul, a D lineman, 11 years in the NFL, I'm going to go for Paul. I'm going to run for Bruce. And us as Cowboys, I'll tell you right now, I would rather get knocked down like a man than run. But I tell you what, if I had to meet someone like you in a dark alley, my butt's running as fast as I can.
You'd probably get the first shot in. I'm slow.
The problem is, I don't think one shot will work.
Well, I got a hard head. I've proven that.
It better count.
Thank you, and God bless, Bruce.
Thank you, and God bless you for everything you're doing, Bruce. And if you need anything, man, be more than happy to reach out. Like I said, you are the godfather of this cause, and I just appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, he has his own podcast called Broken Brains. Man, let me tell you, it's awesome. He brings on great people, doctors, EODs, everybody on it, and he calls them out. Go watch Dr. Moron? What's his name?
Yeah, Moron.
Yeah, Dr. Maroon. Go watch that podcast.
I crushed another one, dude. That Boston University guy works at Boston Children's Hospital, and he gets on this it was a one day on RHI. It was the first time, a 2-day seminar on RHI. And he's talking about how parents should be, you can't tell parents not to risk their kids' brains. And dude, I was on him, man. He's leaving he's like, I'm done with you people. I'm out. I'm going to go do spines or something. And he's paid for by the NFL. I'm like, dude, you're crazy. You're gonna compare the risks of baseball with the risks of football with brains? Are you nuts? And anyways, guys, hey,
thank you.
Jump. Thank you so much, man. God bless you guys, and we'll be in touch. Let's do it again. Talk about this all day long.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, folks.
Bye.
Be good. I got to figure out how to leave. Where's the leave button? Oh man.
RHIs. Man, what another great episode, and I just love to be. I mean, this one's hitting core to my heart because I believe this full on. I believe that people need to go and seek help.
Right.
And if we can make TES as big as everyone made CTE.
Right. Yeah, because you can get a definite diagnosis with that, and there are treatments available.
Right.
So there's modalities available, and we got to get insurance to reimburse on a lot of these things. And again,
Well, not even reimburse. I think it should just be in. I spend more money on supplements than I do on my prescriptions.
Right.
Because insurance pays astronomical amount of my prescriptions and I just pay the copays.
right.
But I'm spending hundreds of dollars a month on supplements.
That are actually clinically tested. Many of them are.
Right. My fish oils, my vitamin D's, my pregnenolone, my 5-HTP.
Right.
You look at it, I think this is the biggest issue, and Bruce has it right. If we can make RHI, RBE, label it under the TES, and you get people like yourself to go get validated to make this what it is.
Guess I'm going to get validated.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, thank you for coming around. Please go like, share, subscribe, do everything that you want. Go to our Facebook page, our website, LinkedIn, Spotify, Google, Apple. We're on all platforms. Go check them out. And just thank you so much for this episode.
Help us with the awareness, because awareness will bring hope to people suffering from TBI, TES, RBI, RBE. Thank you, and stay alert.
Stay alive.
This podcast is for general information only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard and delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.